That's right.
This is kind of a fun story from a corporate magician and speaker, Kostya Kimlat. It's called Teaching Employees to Execute Customer Service Magic. And if his name sounds familiar, it might be because you saw him on Penn and Teller's Fool Us television show. He actually fooled Penn and Teller with a card trick, which actually you can see in the article. If you go to the very bottom, the video, you can watch that video. It is an amazing card trick.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
Okay, well, in his article, he's a corporate speaker, and his whole shtick is he does magic for corporate events, but then he kind of ties his magic tricks into what this, how can you translate this into a kind of a corporate message. In this case, in his article, he's making the connection between performing magic and customer service, and maybe even more broadly, let's say sales, okay? So he does this with what he calls the 4 ACEs, or A's, ACEs because he's a card trick guy, right. 4 ACEs or 4 A's from a magician's tool set of perception. And customer service, if you think, it is largely about perception, right? And sales is largely about perception. What kind of perception or how are you shaping the perception of your customers? So his 4 A's are: what assumptions are your customers making? How are you acknowledging those assumptions? How are you building anticipation to heighten emotion, and what are you doing to surprise, delight, and ultimately astonish your customers? These are all kind of common sense, but let's take a look at them a little bit. So first of all, assumptions. Kimlat writes that magicians use assumptions that the human brain naturally makes against you. They use these assumptions to pull off their tricks in a way people don't expect. So they use assumptions to convince the audience. They kind of, okay, the audience is going to assume I'm going to do this, so I'm not going to do that. Right?
Misdirection.
Misdirection. Well, yeah. We don't want to use misdirection in the sense of customer service, but there is kind of this idea: what are your customers, what are they expecting? Oh, it's another, yeah, I've seen this product before, yeah, blah, blah, blah. That's their assumption, right? Or, yeah, I've heard about you, I haven't heard very good things about you, it's an assumption. Or maybe I've heard great things about you. So you take those assumptions, and what do you do with them? So Kimlat says, you have to consider these assumptions that your customers are making about you. Are they assuming that your brand or your product is good or bad? Are they assuming assumptions about you? Are you good or bad as a company? What assumptions are they making of you? What people perceive? People perceive what they expect, says Kimlat. So before you can deliver on any customer service, you need to get into the minds of your customers and understand what they're assuming is going to happen when they interact with you. So the next one is acknowledgement. You have to acknowledge the assumptions. You can't ignore them or wish them away. Acknowledging a customer's assumption communicates authenticity, writes Kimlat. So what are the assumptions, true or false, your prospective customers most frequently make about you or your business? What can you say or do to acknowledge each of those assumptions in order to proceed with the relationship? So personally, I think this is really key, particularly if you acknowledge that, for instance, you don't have a feature that your competitor has. You don't whitewash it, you don't try to cover it over. You say, yeah, we don't do that, but our product has many fantastic features, and here they are, right? So you don't try to wave your hands around and disguise the fact that maybe you don't do something that your competitor does, or maybe you don't disguise the fact that maybe in the past your company's products had a bad reputation. Maybe there was a major fail in the past. Okay, you acknowledge that, and then you just run with it. You acknowledge it and you keep going. So then the next thing is anticipation. We have all watched a really good magician build anticipation. Even if you think you know how the trick will end, maybe even if you do know how the trick will end, a good magician can suck you right in and still leave you amazed. We see this with card tricks all the time, right? You know what's going to happen. Pick a card, any card. I'm going to stick it back in and I'm going to do all this stuff, and what? Oh yeah, and sure, I show you your card even though I didn't see it. Everybody knows that's how it's going to end. It's the execution and the leading up to that that still amazes us, even though we know the ending of the trick. It's no different when you're selling a product. product, people know you're going to be a salesperson. People know, yeah, here's my product, it's really great. Well, of course, yeah, I know your product's really great. You probably wouldn't be trying to sell it to me if it wasn't really great, right? I know the end of this trick. And I also know that you're going to try to sell it to me. I know the end of this. I know it's coming, right? So Kimlat writes that you can raise anticipation levels in a sales interaction, for instance, by painting a picture of how the customer's future might look. You kind of tease it out. What can you say to get a customer excited about a future payoff? Is there a way you can create anticipation through generating tension? We were talking about this, you were talking about this earlier. You know, I've got a coffee cup I'm going to sell you. It's a great coffee cup. You want it?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay. Or you can go into, you know, how a coffee cup is made. It's made here in the United States. We pay our you know, workers twice minimum wage. You know, you can kind of start building a story around the coffee cup, and then at the end get to, this is a great coffee cup. You want to buy it. Well, now you've built something into it, which is a lot more interesting, even though at the end, there's absolutely no difference.
Yeah, right. The trick is the same, but I mean, the outcome of the trick is the same, but it's how you get there.
It's how you sell
it. The value that you bring to it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that building anticipation. So you need to think about how you can build anticipation so that when a customer finally makes her purchase, she feels like it's a cause for celebration, like she's doing something. And finally, at the end, there's the astonishment. And I'll just sum this up with a quote from Kimlat, because I think it says it all. Kimlat says, excellent customer service comes down to how well you're able to astonish your customer. Sure, a customer might have assumptions that you may have acknowledged, and you might even deliver on what he anticipated would happen. But unless you go an extra step, providing something he previously thought unlikely or impossible, he will not walk away feeling astonished. And kind of, if you think about it, for those of you who've been around to know Tom Peters, this really sounds a lot like, you know, the whole wow thing by Tom Peters. You don't just deliver the product. You deliver a product that blows them away.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. And you know, and kind of like a magician, when you're in sales, you know, it's not about the trick, it's not about the product. It's about the personal connection you make with the magician or the salesperson. I mean, ultimately, you know, if you're in a sales environment, you're not selling your coffee cup, you're selling yourself, because obviously you want that level of astonishment, but you also want the person to know, again, when they walk away and they feel so good about that sale, that you're behind it, that they trust you to deliver. And if something does happen to go wrong and it's not exactly what they expected, or it didn't perform exactly the way they wanted, they know that you're there and you're going to make it right because they trust you.
Right.
So the magician in that role, the salesperson in that role, really is the center of the hub in which everything else revolves. And the value really is tied in very much with the personal connection you make with the person you're selling to. It's important stuff. But what he's saying there is really interesting, is that, you know, there's this whole factor where you go through this process, the 4 A's, and you get out to the end of it where people are like really happy that they made that decision, you know? You know, car salesmen say that all the time. You know, you really want the person to drive off the lot and feel like they're really excited about what they bought.
Like, oh gosh, I just spent, you know, 20 grand.
Like, well,
oh boy.
Taryn talked about it. She just bought a new car because she had a car accident. That she really felt like she really enjoyed she didn't enjoy the process so much, but she enjoyed the outcome of that car. She really felt like she did her due diligence. The salespeople helped her, and she got what she wanted. So it's a good process if it's done right, and the salesperson does it in the right way.
I encourage you to watch the video at the end of that. If you want to see a great card trick, I'd never seen this one before. It's actually really good.
It's really fun. Yeah, and Penn and Teller are always cool too. So it's good to see him on there. Okay. Great.